Hi guys, and welcome back to my Scary Movie Month movie reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing Scream from 1996, directed by Wes Craven. This is my last movie I'll be reviewing this month for Scary Movie Month because it's the last weekend in October, and this is a perfect movie to wrap up the reviews. There's something really interesting about this film. It is one of the few movies that, in the universe of the film, the characters are aware of other films and actors existing, and they're aware of other horror movies. And so they comment on other horror movies throughout the film. And some people have actually called this movie a parody, which I don't really agree with, because movies like Not Another Teen Movie are a parody where they're constantly mocking the genre and other films. Where this movie, the dialogue mocks other films, but the storyline and the narrative does not. And we're still emotionally connected to the characters in the film, even though the dialogue mocks other movies. So really, I would just say this movie is commenting on other horror movies and its cliches, and it's kind of having fun with that. I wouldn't call this movie particularly gory or suspenseful, but it is kind of like a fun mystery whodunit, and you're trying to figure out who the killer is throughout the movie. And by using other cliches from other horror movies, Scream kind of gives you clues as to who the killer is throughout the movie. So if you love movies and you've seen a lot of horror movies, you kind of are exposed to more clues because you know more facts about other films. So the first scene starts out with Drew Barrymore, and I love this scene because Drew Barrymore is probably one of the most famous people in the movie, and she gets killed within the first scene, and I love it. I think it's perfect. So how the murderer works in the movie Scream is he calls his victims and he quizzes them on trivia from horror movies, and if they get the questions wrong, he kills them. One of the first questions that he asks is, what is your favorite scary movie? And she answers Halloween, the one with the guy who wears the white mask and kills babysitters. Which I love because Halloween is one of the first movies we watched in this review, and it's tying it back in. And you can definitely tell that the filmmaker, Halloween's probably one of his favorite horror movies because they refer back to it several times in this film. And the serial killer in Scream also wears a white mask and kills young teenagers. Something I also like about the killer in this movie is that he's almost comically clumsy. He seems much more mortal than other serial killers in these other horror movies that we've watched. And I think that's partly because there's no real science fiction in this movie at all. The killer is a human. Whereas in Halloween, Michael Myers is a human, but he has this kind of supernatural element to him. I thought the death in the first scene was perfect. So Drew Barrymore's on the phone, she realizes this creepy guy is trying to kill her, and she's like, you better not come over here because my boyfriend's a football player and he'll kick your butt. The guy on the other line says, your boyfriend's name isn't Steve, is it? He kills her boyfriend, then he goes after Drew Barrymore and he chases her into the yard. And while she's in the yard, the people who own the house are coming home and trying to get in, and they're unlocking the door. And Drew Barrymore has been like kneed in the throat or something, but she can't talk, and she's trying to scream for help. And she's literally like 10 feet away from safety, but she can't speak because she's been kicked in the throat. And she's crying for help, and basically right out of eyeshot of these people that are entering their house, Drew Barrymore gets murdered. And you keep thinking Drew Barrymore is, famous actress, like there's no way they're gonna kill her right away. Which I wonder if that was an homage back to Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. That was a huge deal that the main actress in that movie, she dies in the first half of the movie, which was unusual, which is still unusual today, and she was a well-known actress, so part of me wonders if that was an homage to Psycho. So in Scream, there are a group of teenagers that are friends at a high school, and kids start getting murdered, and so they start to speculate who the murderer could be, and the very first person they accuse ends up actually being the killer in the end, and I thought that was interesting because, like I said, it does kind of become a whodunit film, and you're trying to figure out who is the murderer, and they kind of point at different characters and to try to make them seem suspicious throughout the film, and they accuse the actual killer first, like right off the bat, first thing. I think Scream is just showing that it's aware that usually in a movie the first person you accuse would not be the killer, and I think they were having fun with it, and they made the first person actually be the murderer. So our main character, Sydney, is the next person to get attacked, and she's at home when the killer calls her, and he starts quizzing her on horror movie trivia, and he says, what's your favorite scary movie? And she says, I don't like scary movies. The girl characters always run up the stairs when really they should be running out the front door. And then in that scene, the killer comes in to attack her, and she can't get out the front door, and she has to run up the stairs. And that's also kind of like a wink or like a funny little joke that the filmmakers are playing on the audience. And there's a lot of irony throughout the film, and that's what I really like about it. It's able to be funny and scary at the same time. One thing I thought was really funny about this movie, it was made in the 90s, so there are a lot of kind of dated technology type things in the movie. For example, after Sydney gets attacked, her boyfriend climbs through the window to save her, and first she's really relieved, and then a cell phone falls out of his pocket. And then she accuses him of being the one who called her and threatened her. And I'm like, it could have been anyone with a cell phone. It's really rare for kids in 1996 to have cell phones, apparently, because when he's getting interrogated by the cops, one of them says, "What are you doing with a cellular phone, kid? What are you up to?" And I thought that was really funny because you probably couldn't find anyone that's a teenager without a cell phone, at least now. Another little funny part I noticed was the principal, when I think he's wandering around the corridors and he gets scared and he opens the door and he sees the janitor there and he goes, "Oh, hey, Fred." And you realize that the janitor is dressed exactly like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, and he has like the red striped sweater and everything, and his name is Fred. And if you've seen that Nightmare on Elm Street, you know that Freddy Krueger used to be a janitor. And then when Sydney is telling her best friend all about the creepy stuff that has been happening, her friend says, "You're starting to sound like a Wes Carpenter film," which I thought was really funny because the director's name is Wes Craven and he makes horror films. So there's another scene in the video rental store in the movie where Jamie Kennedy's character works. Also, Jamie Kennedy is in this movie. Remember that comedian from like the early 2000s who just kind of disappeared? He's talking to one of the other characters and they're speculating who the murderer could be, and they talk about Sydney's boyfriend possibly being the murderer. And the guy that Jamie Kennedy's talking to, telling him his theory, is like, "Why would you kill your own girlfriend?" And Jamie Kennedy's like, "There's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend." And he's referring to, in scary movies, there's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend or boyfriend, which is totally true if you watch scary movies. And it is also true in Scream. I would say my two favorite characters in this movie are actually Will Arnett and Courtney Cox's characters. Will Arnett plays Dewey, and he's a newly appointed deputy, and he is a little bit of a pushover and he's really sweet. And then Courtney Cox's character, and she's kind of this bloodthirsty reporter who is reporting on all of the murders as they happen. I love this scene with Dewey and the sheriff having a very serious conversation about what to do next about the murders, and the sheriff is smoking a cigarette, and Dewey's like, "I thought you quit," and he's like, "Yeah, the time's really stressful," and Dewey's like, "I hear you," and he's got like an ice cream cone, and every time the sheriff takes a puff of a cigarette, Dewey like licks the ice cream, and it's this really funny, cute scene. So in one of the last scenes of the movie, the high schoolers throw a huge party and they're gonna watch some horror movies, and they rent, of course, Halloween, the original. And Jamie Kennedy gets up and he talks about the rules of horror movies, and he says that in order to survive a horror movie, you have to be a virgin and you have to not drink or do drugs. And that's something that we've talked about in the reviews before, that your morals play a role in your survival in a horror movie. And then finally, when Sydney figures out who the murderers are, she asks them, why are you doing this? And their reply is, did Norman Bates have a motive, who is the character from Psycho? Did they ever figure out why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat brains? Things are scarier when there's no motive, which is also something that we've talked about as a scary element in movies. And I think that we can agree after watching these movies and reviewing them that an element of mystery or of obscurity can definitely make things very creepy and scary. And I would say that's something that runs throughout all 4 of these movies that we watched. Thank you guys so much for joining me this month and watching scary movies with me, because I love them so much. I am sad October is over, but I had tons of fun doing this with you guys. Let me know if you'd be interested in watching more reviews for me. I thought about doing different themed kind of things each month. This month was scary. Maybe next week we could do comedy or something like that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I love to hear your opinion, and I love to talk about movies. So I hope you guys continue watching scary movies and thinking about them and what makes them scary. I'm going to go watch some more right now, actually. I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween.